first of all, what's going on? What is this emotion that we're dealing with? And how can I help you? And he's 9, and it's hard for, 9-year-olds sometimes. I have found where my son's pretty good. It's hard for him to tell me exactly how he feels, to really be able to describe that emotion.
For sure. Yeah. We don't always have words. It's not always feelings. Words aren't always clear. We don't always understand how to articulate what's happening on the inside. And so a lot of the time that's actually where we get these acting out of our emotions. So there's a lot of things behind self-harm that can be an underlying cause. It's what the first thing is, if we see someone who is harming themselves, we need to stop them right away. So if they're hitting their head, we want to stop them from doing that. We want to move to them and say, hey, I can't let you hurt yourself. I need to keep you safe.
Hey MOMnation, welcome to Mental Wealth with Laura Wood and Katie Holly Lambert, where we talk through generational trauma so we can leave a new legacy for our children. Counselor Laura is with Benavieri Counseling out of Chandler, Arizona, and you can find her on Facebook, on the web, or by the link in the show notes. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey MOMnation, we are back again with another episode of Mental Wealth. I absolutely love mental wealth time because I get to spend some time with Laura talking about things that matter so much to us mamas here. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Katie. I love it too, because I love that we get to talk, and hopefully the mamas who get to listen can learn something and can feel supported and can feel like they have a little bit more choices and a little bit more answers than they did before.
Totally agree. It's not an easy job, this whole momming thing, huh?
Oof, it's so hard. Parenting is hard.
Nobody ever told me that.
I said that to a kid client the other day. I was like, parenting is really hard. And if I'm telling you a secret, we don't know what we're doing. We just are kind of winging it most of the time. We really don't know.
Well, so, I mean, it's kind of true. And even if you have multiple kids, right? Like you have a couple kids. So even when you have your one, you're like, okay, I'm a new parent. This is all new, whatever. But the second one, is it really that much different? Because kids are different. And so there's a whole new set of rules, right?
Yeah, they're so different. And often having a second kid traumatizes your first kid. And then everything just sort of goes haywire because your first kid really enjoyed the amount of one-on-one attention that they got before you had a second kid. And so a lot of times you sort of automatically get that sibling rivalry on day one, and it's a whole new ball game. You have no idea what to do.
Right. So we don't know what we're doing. It was absolutely a true statement.
Yeah, we just really don't. We don't know what we're doing. We're doing the best we can. We're learning. We're hopefully adjusting when we figure out that we messed up, and then we fix it, right? So we're humans, and we are just doing everything we can possibly do to, not mess it up.
Absolutely. And I think we need to continue to remind ourselves that we are humans, and it's okay to make mistakes. And it's really admirable to dive down the rabbit hole to fix them, so that, like what we always say on this show, we don't want to pass our stuff on to our kiddos. So Mental Wealth is a great place for you to, listen to us talk through and discuss these topics. Usually we're live when Zoom wants to cooperate with us, right, Laura? Then we're live. So if you have any questions, or you have any comments, I'm watching the comments, guys. You can always pop the questions in, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions and comments while we are live. Sometimes Laura and I get really deep in discussion, and then I'm sorry if I haven't been paying attention to your comment.
And I also don't know how to do both at once. So I rely entirely on Katie to tell me when somebody has a comment or question. I don't know what's happening.
And so we do actually have our first comment. Hello, Lolly. Really, really glad to see you here. And she is speaking to the topic that we are just about to dive into, Laura. So for all of you out there, Laura and I do one of two things. We'll usually look at an anonymous post that's happened, within the last month or two in the group, in the MOMnation group, and we'll take that, usually anonymous. We don't want to put anyone on blast, and we'll talk through that in hopes to help out that mama and anybody else that is dealing with the same situation that mama might be dealing with. Other times we have ideas about topics that maybe, Laura's dealing with a bunch of in her practice, or that's just kind of common, or that we feel really is important to talk about. Today, we chose to look at a post that came out about 5 days ago, and it's concerning self-harm and kiddos. So thank you, Lolly. She said that if we're talking about self-harm, and I'm sure that we will address this, Lolly, as we get into the discussion, she found out that in April, her 14-year-old was cutting, and she is really, I know. Big hugs, Lolly. And so she's just wondering, hey, how can I help her out? So hoping this discussion dives right into that, as I know it will. Let me share the post that we're talking about, Laura, before we jump in.
Sure.
Hold on. All right. So for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I will read it just because I know that you can't see it. This anonymous member posted, like I said, about 5 days ago. My son is turning 11 this year, and he's had an issue with self-inflicting harm when he gets upset or frustrated, specifically hitting his head against things, has thrown things a few times. He's not an angry kid at all, usually very calm, but in weird moments where he gets in trouble for tiny things or gets taunted by other kids, he'll start banging his head on things like floors and tables. I have no idea what to do about it. We've always talked to him about it after it happens to try to understand what's going on during those moments. Does anybody have any suggestions?
Oh, how scary that must be.
Totally. This one spoke to me a bit because, as I shared with you, it's not quite like that, but my son has, and it's not every time he's in a stressful situation or an upsetting situation, upsetting to him, but he will do that too. And I felt the same as the mom. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what, first of all, what's going on? What is this emotion that we're dealing with, and how can I help you? And he's 9, and it's hard for 9-year-olds sometimes. I have found where my son's pretty good, it's hard for him to tell me exactly how he feels, to really be able to describe that emotion.
For sure. Yeah. We don't always have words. It's not always, feelings words aren't always clear. We don't always understand how to articulate what's happening on the inside. And so a lot of the time that's actually where we get these acting out of our emotions. So there's a lot of things behind self-harm that can be an underlying cause. It's what the first thing is, if we see someone who is harming themselves, we need to stop them right away. So if they're hitting their head, we want to stop them from doing that. We want to move to them and say, hey, I can't let you hurt yourself. I need to keep you safe, right? First, number one. So, and that's true even in my office. Their self-harm can come in many forms. So I might see someone who is like squeezing their hand too tight, or digging their nails in, or going like this, or you can't see me. I'm going digging my nails into my arm to maybe just like cause pain, maybe picking at my nails, right? So when I see those things in my office, I stop, because that's something's too much for them, right? I don't know what it is, doesn't matter, stop. And we need to help keep that person safe. So rule number one, if we see someone harming themselves, we stop them. And we let them know, as the adult that is responsible for their safety, is, hey, I can't let you hurt yourself. It's important that I keep you safe, right? And so I know that you're having a really hard time. I want to be here with you to help you. We'll get through that. And we're going to stay safe while we do that. And so that's just number one. And then if we can learn about what's happening after that, we've established a sense of safety, and after we've established a sense of calm, then we can learn, hey, what's happening for you? I noticed that was something you were doing. Maybe you've mentioned it before, that you've done that, right? Like you had shared, Katie, with your son, like, okay, why though, right? So like, what's happening for you? What is that helping you with? How is that helping you cope with whatever's going on? So behavior is a strategy to regulate their emotions. Any outward behavior is a strategy to regulate emotions. So when we're out of control, our behavior is a strategy. So we need to know, what is that strategy? What is it doing for me right now? And that's where we can get into, okay, how can we find a way to do the same job, but do it in a safe way, right? So whatever whatever problem it's solving, then we can work through finding different solutions and allowing the child to work through learning those different solutions, and not being ashamed that was their initial solution, because that's an instinct. It's instinctual to fight, right? Like fight or flight behavior. It's a fight behavior. If we are feeling a certain way on the inside, we'll often shift that feeling to the outside. So I don't know, I've even heard this before, like from adults, like if you hurt yourself or something, or like it's like a distraction, like it's like if you pinch your fingers together or something to distract you from the fact that you're doing this other thing that's painful or something, right? Like if you have, right, like that's literally self-harming. So if we kind of think about it from like a zoomed out perspective, right? In the moment, your kid is getting hurt and that's scary, right? But so when we zoom out and really understand like what's the strategy, then we can start working with the child's nervous system to better understand how to safely manage difficult experiences. That was a lot. So
that was, but it was really helpful. And really, I really gained a lot of clarity there. What kind of questions, or what examples of questions would you suggest to a parent that maybe has a younger kid like mine? So, and this particular anonymous mom has an 11-year-old. So they're kind of, they're younger. So what kind of questions would be good to ask them to sort of get their mind working and get them, help them to be able to describe what is going on for them if possible?
I go with a couple of pretty straightforward questions. One is, what's happening for you right now? Two is, how is that helping you? Right? What is that helping you with right now? Because they might be feeling however they're feeling, and the answer is going to be, it helps me stop feeling like this, right? So it helps me feel less angry. It helps me feel less scared. It makes me feel in control. It punishes somebody, me, you, whatever, right? Like, so what is that helping you with? How is that helping you right now? Kids are surprisingly insightful. They know a lot more than we realize that they know. And I've had some really like surprising and intuitive and insightful and really really clarifying answers from kids when I ask these types of questions, like, okay, what's going on for you, right? And I'm asking this in a non-judgmental way, because I know one thing that I often say to kids is like, hey, brains and bodies do a lot to help keep us safe. And when we aren't really sure what to do, our brain and body will just do something for us, right? It's going to take over, and we're not going to have a lot of control over that. Okay. So when we feel out of control and dysregulated, when we feel in danger, that's what's happening. Our brain and body is going to go ahead and just take that on. It's going to help us out, and it's going to do something to help us. That thing might be something that as an adult without that perspective sees as very troubling, right? Maybe they're hitting another kid. Maybe they're, destroying property. Maybe they're whatever, right? But it's something is happening inside of that child, and that child has lost control. And so their brain and body has taken over to say, I got this. We're going to get through it. I'm going to survive. Right. And so it sometimes can sound counterintuitive that self-harm is actually a survival skill. But the truth is, it is a survival mechanism, right? Because the intolerable experience is being taken over by something more tolerable, self-inflicted, in control, understandable, right? We're making it make sense. We're taking control. We're taking ownership of it. We're protecting ourselves from being hurt by another by hurting ourselves first, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why somebody may be, what that strategy is doing for them, right? Like why somebody may be self-harming. And so not everybody's going to experience all of those, right? But those are some common themes of why one initiates a self-harm strategy when in distress.
There was so much there. Oh my gosh, my brain is like running like crazy. No, it's okay. That was totally awesome. What? So when it happens with us, like I said, it's not all the time. It's a fairly rare occasion, but he does it, and he does it in front of me. So I know it's happening. I don't know if he does it not in front of me, maybe. But if he wasn't doing it in front of me, what kind of signs would I be looking for? What would be kind of some red flags that I might recognize as a parent to indicate that something like this might be going on?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it could be a lot of things, but one thing that comes with self-harm often is negative self-talk, right? So, berating yourself, shaming yourself. I'm so stupid. I'm the worst. I'm just a dumb kid. I'm just this, I'm whatever, right? Like I'm a failure. I always mess everything up. Like those kinds of thoughts, right? That's a self-harming action. You're bullying yourself, right? So those thoughts are self-harm. It's just not physical harm, right? So we can watch for that kind of thing. We can watch for sort of a checked out numbness, right? So like if your kid is really just checked out, like overly non-emotionally reactive, just kind of whatever, like aloof, like just doesn't keep track of time, doesn't know what day it is, doesn't really think about much, like just sort of just not engaged. That's a dissociative strategy. Okay. So dissociation, self-harm is a dissociative strategy as well. But essentially what that means is when we're experiencing something that feels like too much, our system, our internal nervous system will sort of help us remove ourselves from the situation from the perspective of attention. We're going to disconnect. We're going to check out, zone out. We're going to, if you've heard people say like, I just left my body and it was like I was watching this happen, right? When it's too much. Because what our nervous system is doing is it's saying, hey, your physical body is experiencing so much pain that would be too much. So I'm going to turn off that experience. So then you go numb, right? So it's a survival strategy. If you are seeing your child, so that's a like extreme example to just demonstrate like the danger factor of it, right? Right. But small things for kids can indicate danger. Small things such as a perceived loss of an attachment figure, inconsistent access to caregiving, difficulty feeling accepted, being labeled like as bad. A lot of times kids who have certain neurodevelopmental differences, like sometimes like an ADHD or sometimes like an OCD type thing, like any kind of just difference, right? Those kids can often be sort of labeled as like, oh, they're annoying, or they're a problem, or they're just hyper, they're just all over the place. Like this, oh, there he comes again, like, you know, the crazy kid or whatever, like just in jest almost. But a lot of time, like we can't tease a little kid. Like when an adult teases a little kid, like they don't understand that. They don't understand
Right.
sarcasm, right? Like they don't understand that that's not real.
Exactly. It's not, yeah, true.
Right. So there's so much more that could be dangerous to a child than we see as an adult, right? So those little things that are occurring for a kid, their nervous system may be feeling like, oh, alert, alert, alert. I need to do something about, like, this is too much, right? I don't know how to handle this. When the kids are picking on me, so I'm going to pick on myself to get back to make it so that I'm laughing with them, right? So that self-deprecation, like we see that those are in some ways can be a healthy coping skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so you can kind of see how all of this stuff is sort of interconnected, right? There's levels to this. The level of feeling out of control, the level of feeling like it's too much, the more the child feels like things are too much and the child doesn't feel like they have adequate support or skills or capacities to really work through it, then the more their dissociation and their dissociative strategies are going to take over, because that's an automatic strategy. That's what we come with, right? We're born with that. We didn't have to learn it. We didn't have to develop it over time. We came with that. That's our initial instinctual response to danger when we don't have another option, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are what we're going to use first.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Something that Lolly brought up in the comments, and a question that I had also, and I'm wondering would this be an appropriate question for this mom if you were talking with her, but has this young man been diagnosed with something? Because as you suggested, ADHD, or like what other kind of diagnosis could you maybe is more conducive to you seeing this happen? Is that an appropriate question or appropriate way to put it?
It is. I mean, the question itself makes sense. So from my perspective, the diagnosis itself is less important,
Mm-hmm.
because the diagnosis is really just a sort of configuration of criteria that can fit in a category. Okay. So any person can experience dissociative processes with or without any other type of mental health issues, right? Because that's an instinctual process. We have that. We're born with that. It's
Mm-hmm.
already available to us. So there are things that increase our likelihood to continue to use and maybe overuse those strategies. And those what we start to see as maladaptive strategies, like self-harm. Things that increase our likelihood to self-harm is trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and a consistent or chronic lack of safety. So, or perceived lack of safety, and that's physical and emotional safety. So when we think about safety, we think about, well, of course you're safe, right? Like most of the time we're like, well, yeah, you're safe. Like there's nothing happening, right? But like we need to kind of think differently when we think about a child's perspective of safety. So a child's perspective of safety is really intertwined with their relationship with their caregivers. So when our caregivers are attending to us and attuned to us and really like showing up and engaged and like we're having the giving and receiving of information, and like there's sort of a free flow of safe connection and communication, then we're in really good shape. But that's relational safety. Things that increase a sense of distress and that demonstrate like a lack of safety are chronic misattunements. So for example, I'm a little kid and I made you a card, right? And you're doing your podcast right now. So you're on mic, you're live, right? Like, but your kid runs in and is like, mom, look at this. I showed you this thing. And you're like, I can't right now. That's a misattunement. So that kid is like, oh, I'm not special, right? Like minor stuff. So all of this is happening to all kids all the time. Like, I mean, nobody's perfect,
Right.
But so that's an example of a misattunement. So now think about if that's like one regular day, whatever. And then you could go to your kid after the thing and you're like, hey, I'm so sorry that I couldn't look at your card. I can't wait to see it. Can you show me now? Yeah, all better. Everything's fine. Like it's over. It's repaired. You're done.
Right.
Right. Now think about moms who work 3 jobs and parents who, and I say moms, but I mean, literally just caregivers, anybody who's taking care of a child, have physical or mental health issues themselves.
Yeah.
Right. How often do we have to say, I'm not available to you in that sense? Right. So those kinds of things, those are like little t traumas that impact a child. And so we want to think about how can we focus on repair and increasing our relational safety so that if I do have to be unavailable to my child, I can help them understand what's happening and that it's not about them, right? It's not because of you that I couldn't spend time with you, or it's not that I don't want to spend time with you. It's that I have this really important job. And so I really want to have time where I can treat you the way you deserve to be treated, and we can hang out on a special day. So let's go out to lunch tomorrow or something, right? So you can build that in, and every scenario is different, but it's really just that safety in the relationship, the knowing that I've got you, you can access me, I recognize you, I see you. And when we can attend to the child and limit our reactivity and just sort of allow the child to exist and throw out ideas, and we try not to we limit our criticism of that. We limit our reactivity to that. We limit our, I always say, like, control your face. Control your face when they say something shocking. Like, try to, you know what I mean? Like, so really trying to just be as accepting of their experience as possible. And then that's a non-judgmental way to get them to trust that they can talk to you and you're not going to freak out, even if they say something that makes you freak out on the inside. Mm-hmm. You're going to show them that you're available, and then you're going to help them learn whatever it is that they need to understand about that situation, because they're learning. They're not masters. They don't know already. So we're going to look at this from a learning perspective. How am I designing? My purpose is to teach them. It's not to punish or control, but it's to create discipline and teaching and learning and growth environment, right? So, so our perspective on our kids' distress can have a lot of impact on their perspective on how well we are attuning to them. Like, if we're minimizing that all the time and we're not really recognizing that those things matter to kids, then it's going to create that chronic misattunement that leads to a sense of a lack of safety.
That is so giant. And I want to dial you back just a little bit to things. First thing that you said about, if you're being sarcastic with a little kid as an adult and you're just in fun, like, that you would say to a friend or whatever, they don't get that. They take it literally.
Yeah.
And that sort of bleeds into second thing. I heard you refer to little t. I know what that means because I know you and we've had these conversations. But I think that as parents, if we're not familiar or not aware of what the little t traumas are that we're potentially exposing our child to, we might not know. We might think everything is all good to go. And why in the world is my child doing something like this? Because our life is perfect. What? You know what I mean? Because we just don't know. So can you just kind of touch on little t versus big?
Yeah, so it's kind of an industry term where we talk about this as like trauma therapists. A big T is like a near-death experience, like a true emergency, right? Like things that you would expect as a trauma. Like if somebody were to ask you if you've ever been in a car accident, or if you've ever had like a medical emergency, or like, have you ever had to call 911? Like, those are like things that we kind of recognize as like could be traumatic.
Right.
So those are your obvious things. That's what everybody thinks about when they think of trauma. Now, little t is just traumatic events that happen all day, every day. So that's defined as too much for too long or too much too soon. So that sense of helplessness that you feel when you're overwhelmed, that everybody's experienced, when it's just too much and you're just like, I can't even, like, this is too much. That feeling is a traumatic experience. Like, it's a traumatic result. It's a result of a traumatic event. So I think the word traumatic is maybe a little overused. I think maybe a little stigmatized. I think there's a lot to that. But if we really just think about it from the perspective of overwhelm. Do I feel like I can handle this? Yes or no? If no, and I feel like I can't handle this, and this is the end of the world, and everything is going wrong, and this is an emergency, then that experience has the potential to generate future triggers, because your nervous system is experiencing an emergency, just like if you were in an accident or in a crash or something like that. Like, the emergency factor is what it is. And so when we have kids, like, everything's an emergency. Like, our kids are like, everything is an emergency, right? And so the more we can attune to them and not minimize it, like, oh, this doesn't matter. We say that all the time. Oh, it's fine. Like, you're overreacting. Like, a simple response could be like, man, I'm sorry that's happening to you right now. The end. You don't have to do anything differently. Like, you just are literally instead of minimizing what they're experiencing, you're acknowledging it. You know, like, I'm sorry that's happening for you right now. I'm here for you if you need me. Right? You're not alone. So this is no longer an emergency. I've seen it. I recognize that it's happening, and I'm available to help you. Diffused. Right? So what we want to do is increase safety. It's not safe for me to tell you that something's wrong if I know that your response to me is going to be, you're overreacting. You're just being dramatic. You always do this. Like, it doesn't even, like, this doesn't even matter. Like, you're just being whatever. Then I'm not going to feel safe. That's not a safe relationship, right? So it's the way that we think about safety is a little bit different when we kind of put ourselves in a kid's perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have a couple of other mamas with us today, Laura. We have Rachel, and she said there is the Mindful 24 facility off of Southern and Higley if there's an immediate crisis. So that is good to know. Thank you so much, Rachel. And Diana says, yes, regulate your emotions, and that helps build trust for them to share the hard stuff. Heck yeah. And then Autumn is just tuning in. Hello, Autumn. One more question I have for you, Laura, is, you know, what suggestions do you have for our moms that may be dealing with this right now? Like, we know Lolly is, like I am, like what suggestions do you have to help our kiddos?
I mean, the first thing is, if they are actively harming themselves and they're using like knives or sharp objects, like if they're hurting themselves, right? Like, and it can be dangerous, like they can accidentally do real damage. And so we want to go and have them evaluated by a psychiatrist to make sure that they are safe, right? So if we're in crisis, we want to ask if they are feeling like suicidal, right? Because self-harm isn't always a suicidal indicator, but it can be. And so we want to open the door to ask those questions. And so we want to have our kids evaluated. So Mind 24/7 is a place that's available all the time. There's you can call crisis, you call 988, and they'll do like a crisis kind of triage and see if they need to send somebody to your house and evaluate the person to see if they need to then go into like a crisis facility. So that's an option. Another thing is that if you're concerned about your child's safety, you can also take them to, I refer kids to Banner Behavioral Health out in Scottsdale. I refer that often. I don't think that they take kids under 12 or 13. So for kids under 12 or 13, there are some hospitals available. So like number one, if you're seeing your kid, do these things, you want to stop them, right? Like let them know, like, I have to keep you safe.
Mhm.
And if it's something that is, elevated to a level that could cause real harm to your body, then we want to have them evaluated to see if they're physically able to keep themselves safe, right? So,
like, for example, not to interrupt you, but for example, the anonymous mom that we're talking about sounds like he hits his head against floors and walls. So that's like really dangerous. There could be some brain trauma that could easily happen there. Mine, every once in a while, like punches himself in the face. So a little bit of a different severity there, even though like it's still something that I want to address with him, the severity is a little bit different. That's kind of what you mean?
yeah. And so an evaluation is always helpful in these types of situations. So like if this is like a habit, this is happening a lot, it's not like we've addressed it and it's not stopping, right? Like we've taken some steps to try to get this to stop and it's not stopping. Then we want to take the next step to go get an evaluation. You can see a psychiatrist, you can take them to their primary care doctor, like their pediatrician. You can have a behavioral health evaluation in a crisis situation, and you can also take them to a therapist. I work with a lot of kids who have experienced self-harm, and one of the main roles of therapy is to kind of help them establish an internal sense of safety so that strategy doesn't need to happen anymore. And so the therapist can really help to explore with the child, like what's going on. And so if it's something that's happening, as a pattern, like it's more than one time, like it's not stopping, then, we want to have some professional intervention at that level. And so, no shaming, no blaming, just, hey, I see like this, we're not safe.
Right.
You got to keep, as your parent, you deserve for me to keep you safe. And so we're going to do some stuff differently. We're going to go to the doctor. We're going to talk about this, like, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, being a parent's hard.
So hard, you guys.
It really is. Rachel just piped in and said there are classes now available of trauma relief exercises, and they are amazing. I know that you had you still have your groups, your kid groups happening?
I do. I have a group running. It's summer, so it's a small group, but we've got a few kids who come weekly to their high school age. So anyone who is, a freshman or above is welcome to join. We do a weekly group on Tuesday nights and really talk a lot about our nervous systems, our brain and bodies, like how to kind of recognize when we're sort of dysregulated, how to kind of bring ourselves back, and really just kind of talking about like how this human mechanism really works and how we can gain more control over ourselves and our internal experience. So it's not a process group. If it's not they're not processing their trauma, they're not sharing their traumatic experiences, but it's a more general learning and practical application, right? So I might say, hey, does anyone have an example where they might want to use this skill, and then we can walk through it and practice.
Love it. I love that. And I love that just the whole idea of them getting together and with their peers, and they can kind of be like, hey, I'm not alone. It helps us, right, as moms, to talk about these things and to say, hey, that's happening at my house too. Gosh, I'm a little lost about it as well. Let's help each other out. Let's share some information. So I love that you're doing that. How else can our followers and our audience members connect with you if they'd like to chat?
Well, you can find me on Facebook and you can find me on Instagram. Everything is at Benavieri. So Benavieri. Benavieri.com is my website. And you can get in touch with my whole team. I have several therapists in my office and a life coach also. And so whatever it is that you're looking for, hopefully we can guide you in the right direction.
Love it. Well, thank you again for being with me again. We are now at a year and a half that we've been doing this.
I know.
And it's so crazy because I feel like we have so much to talk about still. Like we haven't even scratched the surface of all the things. So hopefully that means that we can keep doing this for our mamas out there for a long time to come. If you guys would like to check out any of our previous episodes, remember we have a lot and they're good, guys, all about us. They're all about momming and, being individuals and women and mental health and all of that. So hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation AZ. That is our handle. If you're more of the podcast type, maybe you prefer to listen to us in your earbuds while you're running or something like that, then hop on over to your favorite podcast platform and do a quick search for MOMnation Talk Radio. Our podcast channel is a little bit different than many of them out there. We have a bunch of shows here, a lot of education, a lot of content, a lot of sharing with the mom community, and we push that through that same channel. So hit the little bell or whatever it is to notify you, download the episodes, all of that jazz. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much, Laura. Are you there? Did you freeze?
Yes.
Oh,
I think I froze. I was like, what's happening? I'm so sorry.
And I was like, and back to you.
And back to you. No, that's great. I want to keep doing this for as long as anybody will allow us to share this with them. And if anyone has ideas on what they want us to talk about too, like we love that. We're here to really respond to what you need. We could talk about a lot of stuff, but we want to talk about what you need. So let us know. I
totally agree. We want to remain relevant to what you guys are dealing with, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. We monitor this show across all of our platforms. So if you are viewing this on YouTube, if you're viewing this on Instagram, wherever, then just put a comment below and let us know what your idea for a topic is, or maybe it's something that you're struggling with too. You can always message us, and we respect everybody's privacy. We will keep it anonymous if you wish for us to do so. So thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah.
Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye, guys.